The Veil of Isis, a journey into divine revelation. Welcome, seekers of wisdom, to Ancient the Architect TV, where we uncover the profound metaphysical truths hidden beneath the surface of ancient stories. Today, we embark on an unparalleled journey, lifting the veil of Isis. The name of Isis itself carries a mystery so vast that it has confounded seekers for millennia. She is not just a deity, not merely a goddess of the past. She is the wisdom principle itself, the force that animates all spiritual evolution. To understand Isis is to understand the nature of enlightenment, initiation, and the soul's ascension to the divine. The veil she wears is not a physical barrier, but a boundary between perception and truth, between illusion and illumination. This is the path of the soul's transformation. This is the journey through the veil of Isis. Plutarch reveals a profound key to understanding Isis when he describes her as a movement of the mind, a current that flows toward an object, ever seeking, ever transcending. This means that Isis is not just a goddess, but a principle, the very impulse that drives the soul towards evolution. She is the yearning for growth, the magnetic pull toward divine realization. In contrast, ignorance and stagnation are the antithesis of Isis, binding the soul to the illusions of the material world. To invoke Isis is to invoke the eternal flow of wisdom, the force that unshackles the soul from limitation and pulls it toward its highest self. Isis does not reveal herself to those who seek her through external rituals alone. Her mysteries are reserved for the soul that has prepared itself as a sacred vessel. To be a carrier of sacred things is not to hold physical objects, but to bear the weight of higher consciousness. To wear the sacred robes of Isis is to clothe oneself in spiritual purity, to don the vestures of the higher mind. Only those who have attained the causal and Buddhic bodies can withstand the vibration of her unveiled truth. Egyptian texts describe Isis as one whose mouth was full of the breath of life. This means that her words, her wisdom, possess the power of resurrection, not just physical, but spiritual. To be spiritually dead is to exist in unconsciousness, bound by illusion, unable to perceive reality. Yet, through Isis, the power of divine wisdom, the soul can be revived, restored, and aligned once more with the higher path. True wisdom is not stagnant, it is a force of transmutation. Isis, as the Great Mother, does not simply give birth to the divine child, Horus. She purifies, refines, and shapes the soul into what it is meant to be. This is the alchemical process, the burning away of ignorance, the transmutation of ego, and the emergence of divine consciousness. To invoke Isis is to enter the fires of purification, for she does not reveal her face until one is truly ready. Daemons, distinct from the concept of demons, are divine mediators, beings that bridge the gap between the material and spiritual realms, carrying prayers from the earthly plane to the divine. Isis performs this very function. She is the bridge between the lower self and the higher self, between the seen and the unseen. To access divine wisdom, one must cross this threshold, the bridge of Manas, which separates the mortal mind from the immortal mind. The veil of Isis is the barrier that keeps this truth hidden until the soul has attained the vibrational purity to pass through. The famous inscription at the Temple of Sais declares, "I am all that hath been, and is, and shall be, and my veil no mortal has hitherto raised." This is not a statement of eternal concealment, but a metaphysical truth. No mortal, meaning no unawakened being, can lift her veil. Only those who transcend mortality, who awaken their divine nature, can gaze upon the reality beyond illusion. Isis, like the Virgin Mary, represents the soul in its purest state, ready to conceive divine wisdom, The birth of Horus is not a myth. It is the awakening of the Christ consciousness within. To lift the veil of Isis is to experience this rebirth, to be born anew as a vessel of divine realization. The altar of the goddess is where the soul undergoes transformation. Here, the lower self is offered and burned away, leaving behind only that which is divinely aligned. Isis stands as the guardian of this sacred space, ensuring that only those truly prepared may step beyond the veil. Before one can lift the veil of Isis, the soul must first pass through a sacred space of refinement, a hidden sanctuary where wisdom guards the seeker from the lower forces that would otherwise corrupt their ascent. This place is known as the Anrut F district, a metaphysical threshold where Isis, the divine mother of wisdom, shields the higher self from the chaos of the unawakened mind. It is here that the developing soul, symbolized by Osiris, is protected, while the forces of illusion and ignorance, embodied by Set, are held at bay. But why does Isis direct us to this place? What role does this hidden district play in our initiation into higher consciousness? The answer lies in Isis's role as the guardian of spiritual evolution. She is not merely a giver of wisdom, but also a protector of that wisdom, ensuring that the soul does not receive revelations prematurely. Knowledge given before its time can be destructive, like feeding solid food to an infant who has not yet developed teeth. The veil of Isis serves the same purpose. It is a boundary that separates the unready from the ready, ensuring that the mysteries of divine reality are not revealed before the soul has attained the faculties necessary to comprehend them. Anrut F represents this very principle. It is the domain where Isis presides over the evolving consciousness, shielding it from lower vibrations while it matures. Here, the higher nature is not yet fully realized, but it is preserved, much like a sacred flame that must be carefully tended until it burns bright enough to sustain itself. In ancient texts, Osiris is said to dwell within Anrut F, a significant clue that tells us that the higher self already exists within us, but requires nurturing before it can fully awaken. Isis, however, does not wield a sword to defend this district. She does not battle Set with brute force, as Horus does. Instead, she uses words of power, divine wisdom, and protective magic, symbolizing the role of intuition, sacred knowledge, and inner vision in shielding the seeker from illusion. This is a shift in spiritual approach. While Horus represents action, force, and outward struggle, Isis represents intuition, surrender, and inward mastery. The soul's battle is no longer external. It becomes an internal process of refinement and preparation. This is why Anrut F is crucial to the lifting of the veil of Isis. It is the final space of divine incubation, where the initiate is protected from the distractions of the lower mind before stepping fully into revelation. Anrut F is not just a location in myth, it is a phase within the seeker's journey. It represents that stage of development where one is no longer consumed by the illusions of the world, but not yet fully immersed in divine realization. Here, the old self dissolves, yet the new self has not fully emerged. And so, under the careful guidance of Isis, the soul is safeguarded, its divine essence shielded, until it is strong enough to endure the full radiance of truth. Only then, when the soul is fully prepared, does Isis part the veil. To lift the veil of Isis, one must pass through the fire of hell, not as punishment, but as purification. The fire represents the burning away of ego, the destruction of illusion, the refinement of consciousness. It is the very crucible in which the soul is prepared for divine revelation. Throughout history, Isis has been revered not only as a mother figure, but as a master of magic, healing, and divine transformation. She embodies the highest mysteries of life and death, bridging the physical and the spiritual, the seen and the unseen. In Egyptian lore, she is known as Weret Hekau, meaning great of magic. This title is no mere embellishment. It signifies her dominion over the hidden forces of nature, her ability to transmute reality itself. One of the most striking testaments to her power is the story of how she acquired the secret name of Ra, the supreme solar deity. The sun god, though radiant and mighty, had one vulnerability: a true name, a secret essence known only to himself. To wield ultimate power, one must know the essence of a thing, its innermost vibration, its true identity. Isis, through wisdom and determination, devised a way to extract this knowledge from Ra, proving that even the highest gods are bound by the laws of divine wisdom. This act does not frame Isis as a trickster, but as the embodiment of divine intelligence, the force that seeks knowledge and mastery over life's deeper currents. Her magic is not about fantasy or illusion. It is about the wisdom that enables transformation. This is what true magic is: to understand the fundamental nature of something so deeply that one can shift its reality. When we awaken the Isis within us, we unlock our intuitive power, and life itself begins to shift. Synchronicities appear. Healing occurs in ways that defy explanation. Our perception transforms, and with it, so does the reality we experience. But Isis was not just a sorceress. She was also the ultimate healer. She healed the sick, she resurrected Osiris, and she safeguarded her son Horus through trials unimaginable. One of the lesser-known stories of Isis further illuminates her transformative power. While in hiding, she cared for a mortal child, an infant prince, entrusted to her care. Each day, she fed the child divine milk, nourishing him with the essence of the gods. But her true act of transformation occurred at night, when she performed an esoteric ritual, one that challenges conventional understanding. Under the veil of darkness, Isis would anoint the child and place him into a holy fire. This was no ordinary flame. It was a fire of purification, meant to burn away the mortal parts of the child and make him immortal. As the flames consumed the impurities of his flesh, Isis would shapeshift into a swallow, circling the fire, singing divine incantations. This is a scene rich in spiritual metaphor. Fire, in ancient mysticism, represents the spirit's refining power, the burning away of illusion, weakness, and limitation. Some traditions call it the fire of hell, but this is a misunderstanding. Hellfire is not punishment, it is purification. Just as gold must be refined in a furnace to remove impurities, so too must the soul be purified through trials. This sacred flame represents the trials of life, the hardships, the pains, the suffering that strip away our lower nature and prepare us for something greater. But the story takes a tragic turn. One night, the child's mother, unaware of Isis's divine nature, witnessed the ritual. Seeing her child engulfed in flames, she screamed in horror, interrupting the sacred process. Fear shattered the spell. The mother, out of love, pulled the child away before the transformation could be completed. And so, he remained mortal. This myth is profound in its implications. How often do we pull ourselves away from the fire of transformation before it has completed its work? How often do we resist the very trials meant to purify us, to elevate us? The mother's fear mirrors our own. Our hesitation to surrender to the process of growth. Our clinging to comfort when the fire of spirit demands we evolve. This is one of the most powerful lessons of Isis. True healing requires transformation. It is not simply about easing pain or soothing wounds. It is about allowing the old self to be burned away so that the divine self can emerge. In esoteric wisdom, this is known as transmutation, the alchemical process of turning base matter into gold. Our human limitations, our false identities, our fears, these are the lead that must be purified. And the refining fire, It is the challenges we face, the trials that test us, the moments that break us open and force us to become something more. There is no purification without fire. This is why so many ancient traditions speak of baptism by fire, of the phoenix that burns and rises anew. Isis, in this myth, teaches us that fear is what keeps us from completing our transformation. The queen's love for her child was genuine, but love without wisdom can become a barrier to growth. Fear of pain, fear of loss, fear of the unknown. These are the veils that keep us from stepping fully into our divine nature. Yet Isis did not fail. Though the queen interrupted the process, Isis would later complete her work in another way, through her son Horus, the divine child who would grow to embody the fully realized spirit. And in this, we find a universal truth. Even when we resist transformation, the divine will find another path to guide us home. So what does this mean for us? It means that in our own lives, we will face the fire of transformation. Whether through loss, hardship, or inner conflict, we will encounter the flames meant to strip away what no longer serves us. And we have a choice: to resist and retreat into fear, or to trust the process and allow ourselves to be reborn. Isis reminds us that healing is not about preserving what is. It is about becoming what we are meant to be. The kingdom of heaven, the highest state of spiritual realization, is not a distant promise, but a state of being. It is something we step into, one veil at a time, one trial at a time, one rebirth at a time. But how do we reach it? How do we walk the bridge between mortal and divine? This is where Isis, the great initiator, shows us the path. As we move forward, we will explore the bridge to the divine, the final revelations hidden behind the veil of Isis. Isis veils the inner sun, meaning divine truth remains concealed until the soul is ready. Just as the sun illuminates the world, divine wisdom illuminates the soul, but only for those who have prepared themselves to receive its light. To lift the veil of Isis is not simply to acquire knowledge. It is to transcend illusion itself. This is why the veil cannot be removed through mere intellect, logic, or external study. It can only be penetrated by intuition, the highest function of the soul's divine wisdom. But what exactly is intuition? In the esoteric traditions, intuition is not emotion, not belief, and certainly not mere reasoning. It is direct perception of truth. It is the eye that sees beyond the physical, the knowing that does not require explanation. It is the faculty by which the soul perceives reality beyond the limitations of the lower mind. This is why Isis, the wisdom principle, is the fashioner of the causal body, the spiritual dwelling where intuition is developed. She does not simply hand wisdom to the seeker. She nurtures it into being within them, like a mother tending to a divine child until it reaches maturity. This is reflected in the myth of Isis and Palestinus, her divine child. Ancient texts tell us that Isis built a city in honor of him. But what does this mean metaphysically? Palestinus is intuition itself, the inner faculty that Isis, as wisdom, gives birth to. And the city she builds represents the causal body, the structure within the soul where intuitive perception is housed. Not everyone has developed this city within themselves. Intuition, like a sacred child, must be nurtured, strengthened, and cultivated. Without it, one remains trapped in the illusions of the lower mind, unable to pierce the veil. To approach the divine, the lower mind must first be transcended. The intellect is a tool, but not a master. It can analyze, compare, and process information, but it cannot directly perceive divine reality. As the metaphysical teachings state, the erroneous theories of the lower mind will not be dispelled until the intuition is recovered by the inner memory. This means that wisdom is not acquired externally, it is awakened from within. The knowledge of the divine is already imprinted upon the soul, but it remains dormant until the veil is lifted by intuition. This is why Isis is the veil and the revealer of the veil. She does not remove it for the unprepared, but for those who have reawakened their inner knowing, she lifts it, revealing the eternal truth that has always been present. Many mystics throughout time have spoken of this process. The great thinker R.J. Campbell once said, "A man has seen something he felt sure was true, and has then set to work to prove it." Knowledge flashes upon you sometimes. You do not know why, and intellect may be a long time in confirming your intuition. In other words, intuition precedes intellectual proof. The seeker first receives the inner knowing, and only later does the conscious mind try to justify or explain it. This is why wisdom traditions tell us that the highest truths are not those learned from external teachings, but those that unfold from within. And so we arrive at the supreme revelation. Intuition is the gnosis that lifts the veil of Isis. For the unawakened, reality is perceived only as shadows, a world of illusion, fragmented and obscured. But for those who have awakened their higher faculties, the veil dissolves, and what remains is the direct perception of truth. Isis, as the guardian of wisdom, does not grant this vision lightly. She protects the sacred mysteries from those who would misuse them or who are not yet ready. But for those who have purified their hearts, refined their understanding, and reawakened their inner knowing, she no longer hides her face. The veil is lifted, and the seeker no longer seeks, because the truth is revealed, not as something external, but as something that has always been within. To lift the veil of Isis is not an act of force, nor is it granted through mere desire. It is an initiation of the highest order, a moment of profound transformation, where the seeker ceases to look outward for wisdom and realizes that the truth has been within all along. The veil of Isis is lifted from within. Only when the seeker becomes wisdom itself does the veil dissolve. And in that moment, Isis no longer hides her face. She reveals what has been there all along, the eternal truth that we are divine beings, always have been, and always will be. Thank you for listening to this deep dive into the mysteries of Isis and her veil. I hope this journey has sparked some insights and wonder in you. Until next time on Ancient Architect TV, keep seeking, keep reflecting, and remember, the truth, like Isis, often hides in plain sight, waiting for us to notice when we're ready. May your path be blessed, and may the veil lift for you in its own perfect time.